This was the last of yesterday's drawings that I started last night. I just finished it off this morning using one of these, a little kids wax crayon thing. They're normally this size, but they've got a wind-up protruding piece of wax that goes in it. And I've gone through pastels. That was the Conte pastels yesterday. Again, Conte pastels, but looking like a charcoal drawing. And then using the, I can find it. One of them was a charcoal pencil thing. Funnily enough, it took more effort to draw that because of the need to make marks early on. So when I'm, let me just show you on one of these others, let's say this one, when I'm doing the, you see me just sort of draw the early marks to find the anchors and things, and without any effort I'm making marks. This is the same sort of thing. So it just drifts across and makes the marks where they should be. It kind of works with this, but with a charcoal pencil, but this is probably a poor quality one. But it's still required a lot of work to make the marks that were, you know, sort of relevant and appropriate and so on and so forth. With these things, and I'm going to draw something now in a minute, but with these things, it glides across the surface. There's no resistance to the, you know, to the wax. So it just almost like flows across the surface. Some of the early marks, you can just about see these early marks with no effort. And of course, because of the way I draw, because I need to meander and search for, somebody once called them searching marks, and I need to search for the face because it's that's what it is. You don't, you know, it's not, you don't plonk the face or diagnose the face or engineer the face or construct the face. You find the face. That's what you do. And during that process, I don't want the thing to feel as though I have to press hard to make marks. And so this does that. It does that, and it's on a particularly cheap paper, which is just card really. It's supposed to be a sketchbook, but it's card. I like the shiny thing though. I don't know. You know, tiny little things use little minds. You know, but I do like that shininess because it's not. You can't smudge it. You know, it's not smudgeable. So another reason why I like it, because you know how to fix it. But what's good about it is that it's a progressive layering kind of approach to things. So you can not just from hatching, you can actually create layers of tone and build the tones like you would with a graphite. So you're kind of getting graphite tendencies in a control, but you're also getting this significant densities, which is not graphite like. I mean, graphite will shine. I've seen that people complaining about taking photographs of graphite, but it would never get that kind of dark, that kind of dense. Anyway, so I'm going to draw another one now with the wax crayon, simply because I think it's a great thing, and I think you should try them. You know, because the results are. This is charcoal. You know, the charcoal result. So I'm going to put that on the top without that worrying. So that's the charcoal. But look at the difference. I mean, it's just, if you want dense, dramatic drawings, and it's not always about contrasty drawings. I mean, you could still do I'm going to do a female face now, which is probably going to be far more dramatic than that. But that's as dark as the charcoal I go. I don't mind the charcoal. I don't mind it at all. But I'm just saying it's quite pleasing to see that dark. Anyway, so I'm going to draw this woman, another kind of, what's that woman stood in the shell thing? That one. It feels like that. It feels like that. If I caught the microphone, then I'm sorry. That's what. But as I said, these, you see what I mean? I'm not making any. There's no pressure. There's no attempt to make any pressure on the surface with this. It just allows me to, as I said, to wander around looking for looking for the components of the face, and getting to know the face, you know, focusing on the things that are important, kind of thing. I don't know whether or not she's going to be as, I don't know. I'm just looking at the position of things at the moment. So I'm doing the, you know, the from the top to the brow to the tip of the nose, and then to the chin. So so I'm kind of doing that at the moment, and indicating where things are going to lie. You can't really make. Because I was talking about that in this one. You can't really make mistakes early on with the marks. It's that thing about not all marks matter. Well, all these marks are on this, but by the time it gets to this stage, those marks are invisible. They just get absorbed either into the texture of it, or they become, you know, part of the thing that makes it look the way it looks. So, but as I say, you can't really. You can't do this and worry about whether every mark's going to be perfect, or whether it's going to be visible, and whether or not you make any mistakes. I've said this before, though. This is the point at which you make mistakes. What you need to get to is a point where you've got an idea of where things should be, not an exact location. So you can then work towards it. So it's, as I said, this is the time to make the mistakes, to get things in the wrong place, because then it's easy to fix them, and the fixes get absorbed and become invisible. So, and that, I suppose, is part of the fearless approach. But as I said, I'm just drawing in wax crayons just to show you what they can do. I think especially since the charcoal thing. I mean, I've run out of charcoal, so this is another reason why I'm doing it. But often people say they can't get hold of decent charcoal, or the charcoal they've got doesn't do what they want it to do, or you know, all kinds of things. Mostly it's paper, but you know, it's paper that is the determiner. But it's also the combination of the two. I mean, this, for instance, using this wax on this very smooth card, it's better. Had it been on some coarse surf, you know, either the boards I was using yesterday, or some of that cartridge that I use, I don't think it would be as easy to use. It wouldn't be as flowing. Because one of the things I like about it is the way it flows over the surface. I like that. It just makes it much more of a, because this, you know, this thing about it being a connection and my response, it's even more so because of this zero resistance thing. It's just whatever slightest mark I decide to make, it's there. It happens. I don't have to apply any pressure to it. So I can do all that without having to fight the medium, which is what I had to do with the oil pastels. I think that definitely was a fight. In fact, I said that to somebody. I thought it was a fight to make them do what I want them to do. Not that I want them to do anything in particular. It's just that this response thing that I do has to easily be manifest, not rather than it being, it'll, with a bit more pressure or a bit more this, that, and the other, you'll see it. And the thing about these as well is that there's a level of, and this is another thing that I do, is the tonal thing. There's a level of progressive tonal manipulation. Because it's what I'm doing is I'm not really drawing. I'm looking for the shapes, and I'm using tone to find those shapes. That's what I'm doing. I'm not really looking for outlines or shapes per se. Just tones that gather in one place to create some, you know, a semblance of something like an eye or a mouth. And there's nothing there that's hard and fast. This is just shapes that are defining something. That's all it is. But it's because you can, with this, with varying pressure, at this point it's very light pressure. It can create some kind of tonal balance. Not accurate, but you start to see the shapes of things, which then I can then exploit, manipulate, and progress to something that's more. But you can see in this eye, for instance, that's that. You can see how that would have started like that. You see what I mean? So it's a congregation of tones, of shapes defined by tones. That's what it is. It's back to the proximity thing. But the wax crayon just allows me to quickly simulate these tones. I don't want to get too dark or dense with it just yet, because I'm not even quite sure about the position of things just yet. So I'm going to just be, because it'll move. The thing is, you can move with this, despite what I said about the wax. You can move things only slightly, but it's possible to move things around. But at the moment, I'm only bothered about this shape here, for instance. There's a highlight above a lid there, but because this is not dark enough, that highlight doesn't show. But it doesn't matter. I'm not really bothered about that just yet. I'm more bothered about the position of things. Venus. It's just, I said that yesterday about what was I talking about yesterday? And I said, what's the name? And it was John Carrasco. I haven't looked it up or anything, but I'm pretty sure that was his name, or is his name. And yeah, the girl's got a kind of Venus look about her. The thing, she's got a fairly long face, so I'm just thinking about the thing is that it's easy to overestimate, I've said that to you, she's got a long face, and it's very easy once that's in my mind to think of it in that way. I'd much rather think of it as the Venus thing. I know that's not a particularly good face. I know it's a classic. I can't remember. Is it Michelangelo? I can't remember. But the face is not brilliant, is it? But she has that demeanor, and I think that may be to do with the length of her face. The length overall. But all I'm going to do is check the widths. So the widths of things, just to make sure that if I am going to have a long face, this thing, for instance, this sweep around here, to where it's roughly, we're talking about the side of her eyes there, and then that sort of drops just there. Then you can see then the thickness of a neck is in question. This is throwing it a little bit. This lighter bulging lip thing there, that pushes it out a little bit. So I've got to just a neck is quite narrow, so but it's not necessarily as narrow as I've got it. So it's coming from the eyes there. So I'm just going to tuck the cheek in there a little bit, and then the ear is going to come like that, and then a little yeah. I think the other as we get to this stage, by the way, it's the little things are going to make a lot of difference. So it's quite, the sweep of the lip, for instance, which is that goes up like that and then down like that, and then that's going to affect my response to the other, the rest of it. Also, I did this early on, but I'm going to just make an attempt at the shape of the side of her face in a more tonal way, just because it's going to give me a better understanding of the size of it. That's all. I see the problem now with it is that it is definitely straight there, and I've got to make sure I get that. And all I'm doing is looking at that distance there to get that sweep and that definite jawline there. There's a thing with that I've found as I've done this more and more, is that constantly checking things in relation to other things. It's not that the comparative thing where you sort of define one thing and build everything in relation to that. This is, I'm checking that to that, I'm checking that to that, I'm checking that to that, I'm checking that to that. This is all continuous sort of checking the relationships of things. Somebody asked me about tips and rules, 10 rules or something. Is it? I think that's probably the number one thing. If there are rules, I think there aren't any rules, so do what you like. But I think the number one thing, if anything, if there was, if I was going to say, would be this: learn to relate things to other things, and look at the things in relation to other things. That's quite it is a critical part of this. You can't just draw in isolation. You can't just draw one thing. You can't just draw the eyes and then everything else builds around that. Not if you do work in freehand. You can do it if you're tracing or projecting or something like that, and then you can work one piece at a time. Or if you're just working out from it. But I prefer that the end drawing belongs where it belongs. I mean, I didn't used to think like that, because when I first started doing it, all I was bothered about was just getting the drawing right. I didn't care whether it fit on the paper or anything, which is how it should be. I would say that that's one of the things. The other thing being, don't draw the same thing twice. But in the early days, it was just a case of, I just want to draw and I want to get good at drawing, and I don't care if it fits on the paper or not. But once you get to a point where your drawing is it results in, you know, the outcomes that you like or you're happy with. And your skills develop accordingly, which is probably going to be based on what I'm going to tell you now, which is this thing of relationships. So your skills develop through response, because that's essentially you respond to something and you respond in a certain way, and so your manifestation of that response is your skills, and the skills grow accordingly. But the continual, because this is the thing, you know, to get the eyes in the right place and those not. How you get them in the right place is you continually check, continually compare with the things around it. It's not a case of, as I said, like comparative measurement, where there's one thing that denotes the position of everything else. It's not that. But yeah, as I said, the as you can see, varying pressure on these things. You can see how that eye is starting to work, and then this one starts to shape up. The problem with this is, if I try and draw, this is just big shapes in here. There's a little bit of a highlight there. We're probably going to have to put in with the rubber, if I don't get the balance of tones right. But it may work. It may work. So I've got to. What I'm looking at now is this distance here, right? And what I've got to do is make sure that that tone there, that shape there, is the right tone. Yeah. But as I said, these with the varying pressure and the build-up of tonal values, you can see how this now is setting a precedent of the tonal value. So I've got to then increase the tone on this side of his face accordingly. So as I said in the previous one, and you can just build up the tones. I have a particular way of hatching, so it's not necessarily, as you can see, it's not proper hatching as they call it, you know, with different directions or regular directions. It's more irregular, and I think that's a hang up. I've said before about this. A hang up from the visualization days using spirit-based markers. So, and my dad was a painter and decorator, so never leave a wet edge was the kind of rhetoric and mantra that was his mantra. Never leave a wet edge, and I think that's probably what happens when I'm applying tones. I'm working in quite in what seems like random directions, but all I'm doing is trying not to leave a definite hard edge in things. So it will, unless I want to, you know, for instance, there, I probably want it to look a little obvious, a little more. There is an edge to it. There is an edge there as well, but I won't. If I can help it, it'll still have an element of blending about it. You know, the graduation thing about it, but. But because it's so delicate, the wax crown, it doesn't happen straight away. You can build up to it and decide on whether or not enough's enough. It doesn't have to be straight to the right tonal value. You can see it's like this, and then add to that the linear aspect of that. You know, the linear representation of tone, which is something I saw Zin Lim doing when I first started, and I mean I'd probably done it anyway, forever, but I'd seen him do it, and I thought, yeah, that's somebody who knows what they're doing, because it's not really, their lines are quite obvious, you know, they're quite, as you can see there, but there is a tonal quality to it. You know, there is, the lines are there, for instance, they're there, but they have a tonal value. There is some on their head there, but they have a tonal value. So it's a mixture of those things. Yeah, I would, as I say, I would recommend giving these a go. I know I've done them before, and some of the members have asked for the you know, where to get them from, but they're just propelling wax crayons. There's kids crayons. That's what they are. I mean, you can get them in metallics and all kinds of things. So, you know, with glitter in them, sparkly. So I'm not sure I'm going to draw one with sparkly glitter, though. I don't know. I'm not sure about how I'd manage the tonal values if it's sparkling. It's enough that they're shiny. So this side of her hair there, and I'm just going to put some indications of where the hair is. You know, the curls are flying out, but this side of it here has to be a certain density. So it's only going to be a case of building them. And at some point, and I'm gonna worry about the direction of the, you know, the marks, which is why or how this started. You know, this sort of thing. This started, so it would have started like that, for instance. The thing as well is that it's quite. I quite like the grayness of it. You know, rather than it getting to a real dense outcome. I quite like the, as you can see now, I quite like I think that's because of observing the tonal balance. You know, if the tonal balance is right, as you can see, it's on the face there. Maybe a little bit of tweaking, but it's kind of right on the face. If the tonal balance is right, you could leave it. I could leave it like that. It doesn't have to be as dark as I see it on the reference, which again, this is why I talk about tonal balance. It doesn't have to be value replication. It can be, as long as it gives the impression of form, regardless of their accuracy in terms of value. As long as it gives the impression of form, that's really all you're bothered about. You've got to feel like the thing first, and if you're able to do that without having to commit to the darker tones, then so be it. That's fine. It's not. As I said, it's not. This is the thing about the replication thing. I'm not just talking about the emotional response thing. Sometimes just the need to copy overrides the response aspect to it. So the need to copy is all about, as I said, getting the right densities and things. And I suppose that's why these are good, because if you have the need to copy, and copy is the outcome, you know, the target. Using a medium that's going to give you those possibilities to achieve, you know, the full length full range, then it's a good thing. I once heard, I think Smid, was it, talking about something about you had to touch the work less, or something like that. It was, limited the amount of times that you touch the work. And for me, I think it's like you got to limit the times that you change the medium, you change the tools. I mean, I understand about using smaller brushes for detail and everything else. If detail's your bag, I understand all about that. But for me, if this can be one motion with one piece, one piece of charcoal or one wax crayon, that's better for me. I think the need to, I need this now to do this, or I need this to do this. The consideration that I have to, this is why I was talking about that guy, it'd been difficult with Fest, was in the oil pastels. Having to consider how they'd work was a problem for me. Which is probably why I didn't want to do the photocopy thing so much. I mean, I did have an attempt at doing that, but it didn't really work because it would require me picking up too many colours for a start off, looking for other colours in order to replicate, and that I'm not really happy with. I kind of stick with the, I use a limited palette because I can't be bothered to pick any more colours up. So that's why I use a limited palette. Not the reason that the great artists would use it. It's just that I can't be bothered to mess about with other colours. So, but as I said, that's the problem I had with those things. There was too much I had to consider when I was doing it, and that you can see why I sort of run away from the techniques and the complicated mediums, because I can't be bothered. I just want to do this. I just want to do this. I want to respond to a face. I want to capture an essence. I want to do that. I don't want to be a production artist that is more concerned with a particular brand of paint than whether or not they've created or they've captured the essence. I don't want to be like that. I know that's why a lot of people are like that, but it's not me. And that's all to do with the experience I had when, I stopped. It's because that's where I was going. So now that I'm kind of committing to the density, right? It does, as you can see, it does create a sort of inner depth to it, and a bit like charcoal, you can use that to create the texture of hair. But as I'm getting towards as I'm starting to get towards the denser sort of a treatment of it, everything else is now going to have to, you can see, everything else is now going to have to come up to the relative density. This here is too light. So but this, as I said before, with these crayons, it's easy to apply a layer and increase the density so that it can come up with, as it's doing now, you see, this density here in relation to that needs to change. So, but that, that's what happens. And I spend more time managing the densities, the tonal balance, than I do drawing it sometimes. So, but it's just one of those things. It's about creating this is the physical thing. It's not necessarily the spiritual side of things, capturing the soul thing. But nevertheless, as this becomes more physically accurate, which is a consequence of this, it wanting to feel, I still want it to feel right. So it's all part and parcel of the same thing. So the likeness and the life force it's a little bit what happens is that you're driven by the life force to start with. What moves you to paint or draw. So you're driven by that, the marks that you make, the way you respond, all the rest of it, and then you go through a moment of or a stage of manifesting the physicality side of it, the features and the tonal shaping. But that point is kind of what I was trying to get to yesterday. It's the hardest bit, that, because it can suddenly become a production, and it'll lose all the essence that you responded to in the first place. So it's really hard to keep that purity that you started with. Once you get into I need to adjust the tone section of it, and the lightness becomes more of a dominant objective. So after yesterday, I thought that the dropping thing had, because the wind's died down, so I thought it had ceased. But clearly, it's not anything to do with the wind. It's all to do with YouTube. I went for a time. There's a reason why I upgraded to fiber, because I went through a time where with BT it was constantly dropping, and now he's doing it again. Now, whether or not, as I said, it's the I've got a funny feeling it's just YouTube servers, not my end, but because everybody else is okay. Check my son's connections and things, and they're fine. So it can only be YouTube, I think. So if it goes again, you know what's happening. I'll just try and. It went. If you watched yesterday, went loads of times yesterday, and I kept reconnecting, and in the end, it just wouldn't reconnect at all. It just didn't even see the camera. So that's nothing to do with connection. That's to do with YouTube interface. Anyway, we'll carry on regardless. It's a very British thing to say, isn't it? I can't think where it's come from. That it's famous, isn't it? That saying, carry on regardless. But yeah, you can see how these crayons can, it's as though they've got the full range. And this is weird, because they're not meant for this kind of thing. I mean, most kids are going to just colour in McDonald's or something with one of these, but they've got this full range of possibilities that I don't think you'd see them in an academic situation. You can imagine you went to Florence and they whip these things out. It's not gonna happen, is it? Hey, it's not gonna happen. You'd have to have them like sharpened to a point, a really long thin point. So it's just not gonna happen. But I think that's the thing that attracts me to them as well. The fact that it's just a normal. It's not nothing special. I've said it all along though. When I was talking about materials, and when I first started doing the courses, and I always used to say, it's not the materials or the medium that makes your work special. It's you, and that's the thing. So these kind of these things kind of reinforce that. If you can, I think drawing with anything. If you can draw with anything, that's the goal. Draw with any medium is the goal. But within reason. Draw with a medium that is not difficult to use, like the oil pastels. Draw with something that makes it easier, not harder. See, I'm going to have to alter some of the density of things, either to bring them in line with these two, for instance, in line with each other, which they are getting there now, or I'm going to have to just knock them back with the rubber, which is another option. I think I was thinking about the shorter thing, you know, the longer ones, and there are some others, but I've got a tendency. You can see pushing and pulling. I do that with the charcoal anyway, but pushing and pulling, particularly when you can hear me pressing quite hard on it, it just applies a little bit more wax to it. You know, it's not just a faint mark. So when I want to increase the density of it, I'm doing that with it as opposed to letting it float over the paper. So I'm pressing harder because it's the shorter one. I think it's not the real reason I prefer it to be shorter. I think it's probably because it stops me from drawing. You know, drawing in the traditional sense of holding it like a pencil. I think that's why it's irregular to hold. It's a bit like having a brush that's too long. It's not the normal thing. It prevents you from getting into the detail if it's too long. So I think that's probably the same reason for me wanting it short, because it's not I don't want to be sucked into the representation of the detail and stuff. I think everything's kind of where it should be. I still have to work on the tones a bit. They're getting a bit better. This is a problem on this side here, because it's not that it's too dark in relation to what I can see. It's throwing an imbalance thing between the two. So I'll show you what I mean, and it'll be a little bit clearer. If I can knock that back. You probably can't tell any difference now, can you? Yeah, I can see what you see. I'm looking on the screen, so I can see what you see. So I'm thinking that you're looking at it and say, well, it doesn't look any different now. But it does to me. It does to me. This is the anecdote of the presentation that we gave to a university on a new corporate identity, and the senior design. I was there. I told you the story before. I was there, head of knobs, and operating the slideshow basically. And the designer was there who'd done the corporate identity, and nobody liked it. And he just stood up and said, "Well, I like it anyway." So he couldn't sort of rationalize it, or which is great. There has to be that element of personal choice in what a designer does. It has to be their aesthetic judgment, But the way you just say, "Oh, I like it anyway," which is what I've just done with you. So I can tell the difference anyway, even if you can't. So, but I think it's subtleties like that. It's the seeing those things, because I'm base everything on comparison with everything else. That's the way it works for me. So I'm making these subtle judgments of whether or not something is affecting something else, and responding accordingly. I think the one thing where that really, for me, is really important is the back to the essence thing, because I think that the not just the treatment, but the marks that I'm making have an impact on the way it feels. This, I suppose, all of these, and probably that one as well, because I'm gonna edit that in a minute. That one, that was a complete mistake. So I started with the orange. You will see in the video when I do it, but then it just, I wanted to make it darker, and just grab the the brown. But the way that it then, you can see it feels. I mean, it feels warm. It feels, you feel the light, obviously, because I've drawn it and left all the highlights there. But you can still feel the warmth, and which is exaggerated by the orange. So that, I think, is the, me making physical adjustments to it, like I'm trying to do it there, which impacts on the overall feel of it, which is weird, because it's not like, oh, it's just it just needs to be, tighter, straight, or whatever. But it's not about that. It's or darker or lighter. It's not about that. It's those things are part of the emotional response. So I know I rabbit on about certain things sometimes that seem completely irrelevant, but to me they're relevant. Like I say, I like it anyway. Yeah, as I say, these back to the reason for this video. These wax crayons I didn't know about them. I got them in this. They were in here, right? They were in there, look, with there's a little yellow one there, look, with a pair of pliers, a USB, and a little thing for mixing your oil in, and a box of matches. Oh, that's where they were. So, and there's some dodgy charcoal things and some white pink pencils that are next best to useless, and that's where they were. So I had no intention of using them, but it was when I was going through that, trying to help somebody who was struggling with charcoal, and I was saying, it doesn't really matter what you use, just use. So I just grabbed these things and started using them, and that's when I first, started, and I went on and found some more. Jackson had some more in there. We've got a big box full of pencils. That everybody's got these big boxes full of pencils in the house, surely, when they were kids. And this is when we bought them, when they were kids, and that was the when I started using them. The big thing was the paper. I would say that is probably the reason why it worked, because I wasn't going to waste decent paper, and so I just grabbed whatever I got, and it was just some cheap, I think it was photocopy paper, so it was smooth and calendared and had no bite to it, so that was the first. This paper is just some rubbish that I found from somewhere. It's terrible stuff, but it's what people it's from one of those bargain stores, and sketchbook. They don't do A3 sketchbooks in there anymore, but they're all little ones. It's a ring bound thing, or was a ring bound thing, and down one side I've cut the holes off it, but that was it. So I wasn't like I'm going to drawing this thing, and the usual kind of hardboard experiment thing, this, or what's the other one? Graphene? Is it graphene? Because he left the door open, they only created graphene, and which is the stuff you get on, when you put graphite on a piece of tracing paper, the buildup of graphite on it, that's graphene, and that's the graphene or whatever it's called, which is like a super hard fabric. I think they make with it now. Anyway, that was a complete accident. And then obviously the Classic is hardboard, overcooking something that was not meant to be hardboard. I can't remember what they were making, and I think this was one of those happy accidents, just the same. And as I say, I've got loads. Well, not all black ones, but considering that's really not changed in length since I started doing it, when I started doing it the other day, or the week when I was doing it. So I'm not going to run out of these anytime soon. So which is great. Even more reason to use it, Anyway, so at the moment, it's a case of doing that. You see how the shape of things is starting to look and flow, like the form is there. You can see now that there's tonal issues there, because it would never be that light there, even though there's a highlight there. It's not that light, so I need to knock that back. But at the moment, that's all I'm going to do with it. I'm just going to gradually build that up, and it'll be just a progress. I don't know how far I'll go with it. I quite like the idea of trying to get the flow of the hair here, because this is the bit I think that makes it look like Venus, the hair flowing down one side. So I'm going to do that, and just keep doing that. I mean, and this is one of those, again, it's probably the way I'm holding it as well, one of those places where, because it's all those things where, because it flows so well, it's quite easy to do these marks, this sort of thing. I mean, obviously it's because I work at arm's length and I'm not locked into limited wrist movements or whatever. So that's a big part of this flowing thing. But I've got to watch it out for the density. See the density increasing now. You see this in line with that, and in line with that is completely out. So that, if that's the denoter of the tonal, the marker of the tonal range, then everything that's within that, or should be that, which is here and here, has to be at that level, which is where you get to that sort of stage where the beard has to be, for it to to work. It can't be the densities can't be jazzing around or vibrating around. So if this here is as dark as this should be, so if I increase this density, how the balance changes. That's what I mean. You can see straight away, can't you? You can see straight away how the balance changes. That's all over the face. So as the face was growing, you saw it as it went through the sort of grey stage. As it was growing, it was doing that. The tones were doing that. As I was finding the shapes using tones, the shape of the face was changing, and becoming more defined because of this, the balance, the tonal balance. So so that's what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to bring everything in line with everything, and make sure the balance is right, and then it'll be done. But as I said, you have a go with these things. You can get them anywhere, and they don't need fixing. They don't there's no water involved. It's perfectly dry medium, but I think they're great to work with. Right. I'll love you and leave it, and I'm going to finish this off, edit the video, and I'll stick it up, and you'll see it when it's done.